And so I think by really embodying the idea of, if I'm going to fall and I'm guaranteed to fall, let it be as graceful as my win. Let my losses look indistinguishable from my win. I think you really allow yourself to create a new paradigm of success that I think is very untapped, rare, and very sustainable and evergreen. Because if the same way that if whether you win or lose, it's indistinguishable from each other, then you're always a champion no matter what. And perfectionism can never rock you, because creating something is the art of perfection. The moment that you build, you are embodying that perfectionism of which you seek, which is really the highest ideal of yourself. What's up, y'all? So today's video, we're gonna be talking about why speed is your secret antidote to perfectionism. And the reason why I wanted to make this video is because I find that understanding and executing the concept of speed saves you so much mental misery at being able to achieve whatever you want. And I think the one thing that is common for perfectionism is really allowing the idea of failing to paralyze you from making any choice at all. And I think that speed is really almost like a set of nitrous oxide in your car that allows you to gas through any obstacle and allow you to be more present in what matters. Because I do believe that if you're capable of perfectionism, you probably already have the tools in your mind to execute things on a high level. You just need to let go of the anchor and turn off the emergency brake in your car to allow yourself to really speed off and do what you can do best, which is create, build, and just master whatever you want. So without further ado, let's get into point number 1. So you learn by doing. Success is built off of compounding iterations. Speed gives you quicker ones. Rapid prototyping. So what I mean by that is that in this reality that we live in, you cannot just create things simply from thought alone. Well, there's nuance. You can, manifestation, all these other things. But oftentimes in this space of being human, of being physical beings, we have to do things through physical actions to create the things that we want in our reality. And so one of the things that speed allows you to do is exist in that action of being and create things at a rapid pace to then allow you to get out of your head and build the thing you want. I imagine there would be many multi-millionaires, builders, and physical geniuses at the highest level if we could just create through thought alone. But there's so many people with these amazing ideas and concepts in their head that will never be explored in this world because they simply don't execute it and express it outwardly. And so speed really allows you to not care. It allows you to dismantle the ego that you have inside you that says, if you do this thing and fail, it must mean so much to fail that it's not even worth creating at all. And I think that it allows you to really confront the idea that a lot of mastery is created through creating. If you look at all the greats, in order to achieve the highest level, you have to have a set of high volume in executing. Quantity creates quality, which then leads to more quantity of quality. They work in symbiosis together. And so by doing and executing and taking action, you allow yourself to get out of your head, create more momentum for yourself, and really be able to see your craft develop before your eyes, no different than planting a seed or raising a child or a small animal. Number 2, you need to act before you're ready. So perfectionism thrives on overthinking. Taking action disrupts the cycles and builds momentum in your favor. I think oftentimes a perfectionist usually has created a prison of doubts or fear in their own mind and of their own doing, because the idea of executing this thing and not doing it well the first time really sets a definition of who they are as a person in terms of their value. And I think what speed really does, speed is dumb. Speed don't give a fuck. Speed just wants to create, do, and move. It's all about being in flow. And so when you can outpace the speed of overthinking in your mind, it really allows you to then do what you're best able to do, which is create. I think sometimes we have to learn to relax and lean into the flow of life to be able to create the very thing that we want to do perfectly well. It's kind of ironic that I think that by being a perfectionist, you're actually not giving yourself any opportunity to practice what you want to get good at. Whereas embodying a mindset of speed and iteration and improving over time, you give yourself many more at-bats to get better at the thing that you want to be perfect. I think, and again, like I said, as I'm realizing in talking, that there is a certain ego in feeling like if you don't get it right the first time, it's not worth getting right at all, and you're not capable of doing better past that. I think it's a very limiting belief that really handicaps the potential you have inside of you, because it's almost the equivalent of getting mad at a sapling for not being a big oak tree, even though it needs time, attention, and nurturing to be able to grow. It's no different than the way we might scold a parent for putting all these projection on a child to say, you need to be like this and you need to be like that, where it's like it has to grow into its own person. And to not allow yourself to do that is, I think, a sign of poor parenting of yourself. You have to have grace for your mind. You have to have grace for your potential. And if your potential is so big in your head that your ego is almost distraught at the idea of not executing at a high level, then you have to give yourself the time to build your potential on the highest stage. If your potential is worth that much, then you have to give it that opportunity to grow. Otherwise, it wasn't really worth it at all. It's kind of a weird paradox. The idea that if it's so worth it to you, then you should allow it to grow. And if you don't allow it to grow, then it must not have been that worth it to you because you weren't really willing to put your ego aside to create on a high level. And so number 3, you need to detach from the outcome. And this is why speed helps you do that. Speed focuses on the process, which is 80% of excellence anyways. I'll say that again. Speed focuses on the process, which is 80% of excellence anyways, if you understand the 80-20 rule. 20% of the things that you do bring 80% of the results. Speed helps you focus on the process, which is the daily habits and behaviors you take, which then allows you to create the end result, which is only 20% of the entire journey anyways. You reduce stress, gain more experience, which fosters continuous improvements, and ironically allows you to achieve that perfect outcome faster, which is what I talked about before. I really think that when you're in a state of flow, when you allow yourself to create volume at a high pace, you outthink the paralysis analysis you have in your head. For example, with these videos, I just busted out 3. This is actually my 3rd one today. And I wasn't really overthinking it too much. It was more like I had a time crunch because I'm about to go to the gym. But I was like, it's sunsetting. Let me not overthink it. Let me get my softbox out and just bang these out, because sharing these videos and building my skill is more important than me doing it perfectly. Because I always can make a new video, I always can do it better, I can always change my habits to, say for today, rather than prioritize other stuff. The next time, I can prioritize making these videos early on so I have more time to do it in the day. And there's just things you can do to make it better. And I think that if a craft is worth it to you, a skill is worth it to you, a lifestyle is worth it to you, then you have to nurture it like you would as a good parent. If you don't allow your skill, your craft, and all these things to grow, and give yourself the chance to be bad at something to then be good, then it wasn't really worth it to you that much in the first place. I think sometimes we confuse our ego of failure as a sign that we are super concerned and careful about the craft. But the same thing that when you raise a child, you might have drool on your face, your hair might be messy, but as long as that baby is nurtured and cared for, that's the priority. Your children, no matter they be physical babies or your craft or a sense of community, they're more important sometimes than your ego of self. And if you can't individuate those two things, then you have already shown through your actions what you really prioritize instead, which is your perception of yourself. And the thing is, whenever you want to build something or create, it can't always be about you, even if the thing that you're creating is coming from you. Sometimes you have to learn to see your craft as an aspect of yourself and not your whole self, because in a way, it almost becomes a bit selfish when you prioritize your perception of self that is always ever changing, and you're always going to have a failure. Failure is not a dead end. It is the baseline of understanding and knowledge. How can you understand all the ways that you can get it right if you don't understand all the ways that you can get it wrong? I think it's important to see failure as an aspect of calibration, because you know mentally you're trying to do this thing. So if you don't hit it, it's no different than shooting an arrow at a target and missing. It's not a failure because you did aim the arrow, you did pull back the bow, you did release it. But all you need to see is that you need to find a way to improve it so that your aim is a bit better, that your target, the execution is a bit sharper, your knowledge of how to do so is a bit better. And so I think it really allows you to then zoom out and get out of your ego to understand failure on a more intellectual, academic level. You more see it from a sense of curiosity, because it also makes things iterate faster, it makes you better, and it also makes you more carefree, because you see that failure is not the end of the world. And I'll leave this with a last point here. I'm training a new martial art that the core of it really involves mastering the art of falling and seeing it as the natural foundation, and honestly 70% of winning as well. And so I think by really embodying the idea of, if I'm going to fall and I'm guaranteed to fall, let it be as graceful as my win. Let my losses look indistinguishable from my win. I think you really allow yourself to create a new paradigm of success that I think is very untapped, rare, and very sustainable and evergreen. Because if the same way that if whether you win or lose, it's indistinguishable from each other, then you're always a champion no matter what. And perfectionism can never rock you, because creating something is the art of perfection. The moment that you build, you are embodying that perfectionism of which you seek, which is really the highest ideal of yourself. So that was me flowing, but I hope that was helpful to you and gives you a bit of a tool set to understand how perfectionism is no different than a blocked sink. You just need to use speed or Crisco. I guess speed is mental Crisco to smoothen the gaps and really get to where you're going. And I found that embodying speed and really having a mindset to be able to adapt and change when I need to and just also execute just rapidly really allows you to get out of your head. And when you look back at the thing that you thought was so imperfect, you realize that it was just your faulty mindset, your judgmental mindset of yourself that didn't really allow you to see the fullest abilities of your gift and how much progression you actually have when you allow yourself to just be. So, peace.